Okay, thanks, Rusty. Lacking a proper chairman, I will do the honors and open the budget committee meeting for Wednesday, March 10th. I need an approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Seconded, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then. We do ask for public comment, but I've heard that there is nobody who has signed up ahead of time, which is our current policy. So we will move on to the preliminary budget meeting. And Bruce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for all the Budget Committee members to be in attendance today. This is something that we do that I don't know if anybody else does it in Oregon, but we're not supposed to give you or talk about the budget. We actually have a budget to give you, which usually doesn't happen until May. And so what we're trying to do is to have a preliminary meeting where we can talk about what we think is going to be coming, so you have a heads up on it. And then also ask some questions or try to get some guidance. And so, but in taking that approach, we frustratingly cannot be very specific about anything. It's got to be generalization. So we can't say we're planning on buying a car for $10,000 and, you know, doing so much for the union negotiations, that kind of thing. It's going to be more general, but we'll be much more specific once we get to May. Rusty, if you give me the first slide. I don't remember that one.
That one. There it is.
Next one. People. Or I can just read it. It's fine. I mean, and everybody has it in front of them. But essentially, we want to say that the fiscal year 2021 budget was purposely made to be extremely conservative. The guidance that was used to create the budget was to include only those expenses need to keep the doors open. And we did that. And none of us are very good at predicting the future because none of us had seen that the result of the COVID restrictions, that people would decide they could be more mobile, that they could move to a place and be able to work from anywhere. Schools weren't open, so they were able to travel. That was very good for our lodging partners. We had some two record quarters in a row now. It's been good for many of the city revenue streams. It was not, it did not work out well for the restaurants and for their employees. So you're going to see that are being very conservative versus a very high revenue year. We're in really good shape going into the next budget. So with that, I will turn it over to Lori Sari, who is our finance director.
Okay. As your finance director, I just want everyone to just take a sigh of relief right now because this is probably one of the best positions we could be in. I never thought it would turn out this way, but I'm loving it as a finance director. So it's much better than the opposite end of the spectrum that could have been. So first batch of numbers that I've got up here.
Next slide.
Talking about room tax, because room tax really is like the winner of the day. It's saved us, I think. So you can see, and if you looked at my finance report that was part of your packet on page 7, you can see the first 2 quarters that we have actual results for. And they're the highest quarters we've had in the history of me keeping track of this since 2011. And so when we started out last year budgeting, we were worst case scenario. There was just too much uncertainty. So, you know, you got to lay low and you've got to be very conservative, and that's what we did. Now it looks like we were conservative to the extreme, but, you know, that's a better place to be, in my opinion. So we started out with very low numbers, and as you can see on one of my other slides, you know, our beginning fund balances were extremely low because we still had that part of the year trying to forecast what the revenues would be that we could roll over to the next year. And so with all of these factors in play, our beginning fund balances came out better. The current revenues are coming in way better. And so that's putting us in a really good position. As far as the room tax, I mean, I think the spreadsheet here tells the story pretty well. So we can maybe move on unless anyone has any questions. If you want to just interrupt me and I can answer any questions you have.
Totals
Oh,
for people.
okay, so for on the screen, you can see the 2.129 million in the first quarter. And in the prior year, 2020, it was 2,036,317. So that's 93,000 more than the prior quarter for those 2 years. So, and then you can see the budget we had for quarter one was 926,000. So that's a really low ball number. And so we're seeing way better results than what we budgeted. In the second quarter, revenues came in at 927,580. And we had budgeted 698,972. So far exceeding our budgeted numbers.
And Laura, may I ask you a question? Is the 927,000, that's a normal second quarter compared to previous years?
No, it's, so the prior year, 2020, we had brought in 791,000. And that is, so the current revenue is 136,000 more than that quarter.
Great,
So we're on both quarters now, we're showing great results.
great.
Yeah. So then if we go to the next. So the general fund obviously has a lot of other revenue sources. These are the major, these are always the ones that come up as our top 10. I do a thing at the end of the year that shows where the standing is of top 10 revenues. And property tax is always number 2, obviously is number 1. And so you can see here that we have our actual results that are July through December. And then I just split the budget in half to kind of give you a barometer of where we're standing. And property tax, I kind of lowered the bar on that estimate last year. I didn't know if people were going to stop paying property taxes. I mean, you know, it could have been something that happened. I got to take this off. Under my mask.
Okay.
So I kind of lowered the bar there. So, but it turns out, I think if I had budgeted, I normally do, I think that's where we're going to end up this year. So the budget's about 30,000 low, I think. So that's about where we'll be. We'll be up about 30,000 based on what I can see now. So that's good. Franchise fees, they're going to be about right on target according to our budget estimates. Interest income is another story. We're not going to hit that target. I know for sure. Interest rates have been falling. And now we were at 0.75% for a couple years, a couple months, and now it's going down to 0.54. So we do have more money and this is related to our local government investment pool, where we keep the majority of our funds and we add and subtract as we need for operations. So I'm gonna try to, it's always hard, you know, you don't know what interest rates are gonna do, but I know this will be down about 10,000. And I'll just be a lot more conservative going forward in next year. State revenues are comprised of liquor taxes, cigarette taxes, marijuana tax, and another thing they call revenue sharing, which is related to liquor. But it's a separate component of state revenues. This, I think we'll be okay with the target here at the end of the year. However, there was legislation passed November 2020 regarding marijuana, the state shares. So what happens is we have a 3% tax, that's our local tax that we keep. And then we have the state sharing part. So we've been getting two components of the marijuana tax. And the legislation they passed is going to reduce all the city's share by 74%. So we're only going to get about 26% of what we were getting. And so that's going to be down. But the thing is, we're adding shops in the city. So, and I'm seeing a growth in the 3% part of our tax. So it may not make up for it right away, but I think at some point we'll kind of get where we were, maybe. That's that. So you're going to see when we do budget, and you see the budget next year, you'll see maybe a little bit less of an estimate there. State business licenses, they're going to be down a little bit this year too, and I'm not really sure why. Business licenses are kind of some people renew and some people don't. A lot of the contractors that we get don't renew unless they actually have a job in the city. I think that impacts it. So I think they'll be down about 5,000 in the current year. Court fines are quite healthy this year. And I think they'll be up about 6,000 from what the target budget is. Land leases, they'll be right on target. They're a fixed amount, so we're pretty much guaranteed to get those rents. Planning fees, I think, will be up about 3,000 at the end of fiscal year end, June 30, 21. And parking lot maintenance, those are set fees as well, so we're on target there. So overall, I mean, a few things are down, but that, you know, that's just the way it goes. And I think we're in fine shape in the general fund through 2021. The other major revenues we have are utilities, the water and wastewater fund. We took really big hits in these areas in those last 3 months of 2020. Well, June recovered. We were then opened in June. Hotels and, you know, we had all the visitors, so that helped those revenues in that period. And then going into, you know, the current year we're in, we had a rate restructure in our utilities that helped boost the revenue stream there. So that helped. So that made us better off. And then the RV park, of course, you know, when everyone opened up, all the campers came. So that helped us. So overall, as far as revenues go, I mean, even the other funds that I haven't mentioned, you can see those in my finance report. Some of these funds don't have a lot of activity, like the Affordable Housing Fund. You know, no employees or anything there. The building official fund is very strong, and that's helped a lot by the fact that our building official is working in Astoria. And so we're gaining a nice revenue stream there from him doing that. And that's helped a lot. The recycling fund is pretty, stable. Sometimes the recycling fund is a little like we need a baler or something. Don't know what we're gonna do about that, but we can work it out. Storm drain is good. We recently had some rate increases there, which have helped that fund tremendously. So, and those are fixed fees. So they, during COVID, if you have a fixed fee, it's not going to impact your revenue stream because that's just what you pay. It's not based on consumption. The road fund, that has property tax revenue associated with it. So again, we're meeting those targets in there. So that's looking fine. So basically that kind of tells you about the revenue situation. In the current year, we drastically reduced our spending as well. And the spending levels are right on par. I discussed this with the council last night. Just about everybody's at, 50%, which is half a year target. So I don't see anything really out of the ordinary there. We have had a few budget adjustments this year, but, and that was mostly using contingency. But I don't see any kind of issue there. Now, we can talk about these beginning fund balances a little bit more if you want. So this is where we got really conservative, as you can see. So our general fund, so we thought, at least I thought, we would have $377,976 at the beginning of the year as a resource. Well, it ends up we had actually 1.7 million. So you can see in that first column. And that's quite a big amount of money to be, not carried forward, but under the circumstances, that's what happened. So we're going to be able to realize that this year and, utilize those funds. So that's where you're going to see a lot bigger beginning fund balance this year, and probably a majority of the funds. So that's good news too. So yeah, we left some money behind there, but we didn't know. So I guess that kind of concludes what I wanted to tell you about. I know there's some things about further in the report that Bruce is going to cover about PERS and health insurance and that kind of thing, but he'll get to that. So I think, Bruce?
Yeah, does anybody have any questions for Lori? Okay. If you go to the next slide. Well, I can cover it. Recall, last year we had, I think it was like 1.3 million in reserve. And Lori did a lot of analysis projecting, when we might potentially go negative and some other things. And we thought we would have to use a lot of that reserve in order to stay solvent all the way through the year. As it turns out, we never had to touch those funds. And in fact, I think we'll be able to actually improve the reserve as a result of our financial position. So again, it was good that we were conservative. Do you want the next one, Rusty? Next one. February 4th, staff presented the most critical recommendations for water infrastructure, and those focused on the water supply resiliency program, starting at the springs down to the main connection to the city's distribution system. Next one, Rusty. Then that was followed by a presentation by Lori, who had talked about what the potential implications of the rates were, but she incorporated a lot of factors, carryovers, other things to try to project those. My assessment was that both Karen and Karen did a great job on the projects. Lori did a good job on the rates. And that Lori's work was complemented by a complex rate model developed largely by our own Carolyn Probst. And so we really appreciate it. I think that most people don't know that we can go ahead and now variables and everybody's rates that's in the system. So that was an outstanding job. And this was the first time that the rubber actually met the road for us. It was something complex to deal with. So thank you, Carolyn. I don't know what we're gonna do without you. But we'll know how to find you.
I'll fly to Florida.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, poor baby. The direction that we came out of that, and it was the discussion of, again, Karen's discussion about what the projects were, and then Lori's discussion about what the rates were, the rate implications, is that we were directed to proceed with securing additional loans to fund phase 1 and phase 2 projects. And we acknowledge that as a result of the budget process, we get into more detail. Before we get into that detail, I want to talk about the public works staff, and that includes Jen when she was there. They've done a great job on trying to find loans. And as a result, we've had several loans, a couple of loans approved that had terms such as 50% principal forgiveness and 1% interest for 30 to 40 years. And so we are continuing to pursue those. We've developed a relationship with the people that do the loans from Business Oregon. Yeah, Business Oregon. And they let us know when something's coming because they know that we're serious. Another thing that we're doing is trying to package up several of our projects. And this is Karen's taking care of this. Several of our projects so that we will be shovel ready, because you can see that they're coming forward with an infrastructure program. And what happened during the Great Recession, the city I was managing then, we didn't have anything shovel ready. So they made up a project for us just to give us money. And so we wanted to go ahead and have our infrastructure projects in there. I only talked about water in this case because it was the one that's going to impact the rates the most. But we also have a series of wastewater projects that we really want to get done to make sure we don't have any problems as far as performance. So go to the next one. Phase 1 includes the installation of 3 seismic valves. And a seismic valve is a valve that is on the tank or part of the tank system. If it senses there's a lot of water going out as a result of a line break or any kind of a condition like that, it stops the water from flowing. Well, right now, I mean, if we have a major water line break, it just drains until we go ahead and stop that somehow by closing the valve. So that goes ahead and senses that we might be having some seismic event, and it stops it. That gets us to the point that we have water in a tank, and that's good. And then there's also going to be isolation valves, controls, all those kind of things that are tied to it. We're also doing some improvements around the main reservoir site, our current site, because if the tank were to fail, it's up on the hill. Public Works is down the bottom of the hill. Several other, there's residential, there's all kinds of things. And so we're trying to make sure that if we have a tank failure, that the water is diverted and doesn't, take out our Public Works department and other properties too. So that's what's in phase 1. Rusty, if you go to phase 2. Phase 2 is much larger. It's a replacement of the lines between the springs, the tank, water plant, all the way down to an area, and we're just referencing the RV park. But that gets water, that makes the entire system from the springs down to the city more seismically resilient. And the benefit there is that even if we have problem with lines down here in the city, we can still get water to the city. And we're using the RV park as our node to say, well, we can at least get water that far. And that way, if we have to have people go there to get water, at least we have a water supply. And these projects are clearly going to help us if there's a seismic event, but also we have the same kind of conditions with those lines as we have throughout the city. I mean, part of the lines are asbestos concrete, very brittle. And those could fail at any time. So it's like, from our standpoint, it's like, it just makes sense that getting the water to the city is the top priority to make sure you can accomplish. So that's why we're going on that way. And I would urge anyone that's interested in either the rate studies or the projects, you can view the video of the rate and project meeting going to the city's website. And there's a lot of detail, and it'll explain it much better than I did just now. So are there any questions as far as the rates and projects? Again, you'll see more information on wastewater when we get there for the actual budget. Questions? Okay, next one. Cannon Beach Elementary. We were finally able to purchase the property on July 1st, 2020 for $400,000. The funding source that we've been using, and it's our intent to use, is the county, we're calling it the county TLT fund. When the county was moving forward with building the jail, they recognized that they were going to be short on operations funding. And so they passed a 1% TLT, or tourism lodging tax. And the way that the tax has to be split is it's 30% for operations, or however you want to use it. 70% has to go to tourism or tourism promotion. And they said, we don't have a need for the 70% right now. And so they gave the 70%, and they currently are doing that, giving the 70% back to the cities where it was generated. So that gave us a balance that we were able to have approximately $300,000 available towards the $400,000. And then council approved a loan of $100,000 from the reserves from Tourism and Arts Commission. We've made it'll be repaid in 3 years, $34,000 a year. And we've made our first payment, and then the upcoming budget will make our second. And so we owe a total of $68,000 to the Tourism and Art Reserve. Since we purchased the property, we've had at least 5 meetings where people have given input on what they would like to see at the property. So we've gotten a lot of information. The intent is to develop a facility that will attract tourists, as well as providing locals the opportunity to participate in the various activities. And we have a lot of things going for us. One is the site itself, the natural site being right there on the creek. We also have the long-standing occupation of the site by the Clatsop Nehalem tribe. And so there's a historical component. It's also, I guess it's the furthest southern point, or the farthest point that the Lewis and Clark expedition made it. They kind of got to Cannon Beach and turned around. So it's culturally significant from that standpoint. So anyway, that's the intent. And so we're looking to fund it through continuing with the tourism and tourism lodging tax. And we can use the funds either to kind of as a pay-as-you-go. We can use it to pay debt service on loans. And the early calculations that we've done indicate that there's going to be a significant amount left over to be able to help with operations. So we're trying to develop the property to the best of our ability with zero impact on taxes or general fund. Any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, the roof systems. Roof systems on the gym and the classrooms. They're 20 years past their useful life. They've not been there was no maintenance on them for the past 10 years. They are leaking. And so council authorized us to do a separate project to take it out of the overall project that we were planning, but say, let's just go ahead and get the roofs done. And since the roofs are part of the seismic plan, do the seismic and the roofs to make them impermeable. So we don't have a budget for that yet because the project is still in design. Interestingly, we will be bringing some options to the council because we really think that should be a, eye-popping thing when you're driving in as opposed to a drab asphalt shingle roof. And so part of the discussion we're having with the architects and engineers is what are our options for that so that we can dress up the roof and dress up the facility. So are there any questions on Cannon Beach Elementary? Okay. City Hall and Police Station. The project is stalled right now, but we still have the same problems that we've been talking about all along. And I can go into those. We're having some more than what we had before. But it doesn't look like anything is going to happen soon on the larger project. And the conditions in the police station are just unacceptable. And so when you get to budget, you'll see that we are budgeting for a storage area outside, away from the building. And then taking all of the storage material, which is from HRAP, farmer's market, all those things, putting those things into the new storage area, and then expanding the police department into that garage to try to provide some additional room. A lot of the issues that we're having are overcrowding. There's also issues with the age of the facility, and also the fact that we have, I think during the summer, maybe 25, 30 people working in there. And we have one commode, one shower, and one locker room for male and female. So, and one of the things they pointed out today, the bathroom sink is just a regular bathroom sink, and that they try to fill the coffee machines and stuff like that from it. So there's also ongoing issues with animals living in the ceiling, and being in an old building, we're having trouble trying to find where they're all getting in. There's just so many places where that can happen. So I would like to see further discussion about the replacement of the overall building. This is nothing more than I would say a high quality Band-Aid, and it's going to be an expensive Band-Aid. And the funds that we spend this time, I don't believe any of them will be recoverable. It's not going to include like radio equipment or something that we could move to another location. This is just making changes to the building, and we won't be able to move those. If we do have any equipment that we acquire over the next year or two, those kind of things are movable, but nothing that we're including in this project. There's nothing can be recovered from the project. And just a little, because you know how I can push a little bit. We haven't done anything in a year on this project. And at an inflation rate of 3% and the initial cost estimate of 16 million, the project cost has increased $480,000 from when we last talked. So waiting till we can afford it is not, I don't think it's a logical thing right now. So anyway, but you're going to see the temporary thing is part of the budget. And I'll be happy to give any member of the committee a tour after the meeting or whenever you want to. Rusty, I think we got people trying to come in. Yeah, okay, I'll keep going. All right, next one, roads and drainage. We did very little in terms of roads and drainage last year. We had one road project that was already underway, and we did finish that. But we anticipate we will be continuing our normal road and drainage maintenance projects. Okay? Any questions on that? union negotiations. Currently negotiations with both the Police Guild and SEIU, who represents the general employees. It was greatly appreciated last year that both unions volunteered to forego the COLA, and that helped us. And so they went with a zero COLA last year. And what things kind of are coming back around is we're in our discussions as a result of most of the other communities that we compare ourselves to, they did get COLAs. And so that tends to put us maybe a little bit lower on when we start doing the comps. But in our discussions, or in the negotiations, we intend to resolve that discrepancy. We do appreciate what they did and we'll make it right. So it's part of our talks, not part of our offers. I would say any questions on union negotiations, but I really can't talk more about it.
Just other than to say, Bruce, thank
Yes,
you
sir.
for doing that.
Mhm.
Is there anybody within the city that falls? I know management is not part of the union, and I don't know how we would discuss, foregone wage increases in that regard.
That will come up in the budget. And I think generally the conditions that are provided to the unions have gone to management and in other non-represented groups.
Okay.
Okay,
All
Good
right,
question.
that's all I have at this point. Thanks, Bruce.
okay. All right. Thanks, Brandon. Next one is additional personnel. It's possible, we understand that, things are not all that rosy, but it is possible we may be requesting one additional position this year. We have to look at what the numbers look like, and we've got some other things that we need to look at. But it is possible we'll be requesting one person. I'm
That
sorry,
would be a general fund.
be a general fund position.
Do you know what department that person would be?
Yeah, it'd be in community development. It would be a planner or a planning assistant, somebody like that to help with the workload. Rolling stock, we had one vehicle that was on order and we canceled that last year when we ran into the financial situation. We also have vehicles that are sitting out on the street here that are not drivable. So we want to replace those. One of them is the vehicle that's normally used by the building official. I was in the police department yesterday and they were talking about one, and Chief, you'll be able to tell us the number, but it was one of the vehicles that we put so much money in that the light bar broke. And so they just decided, let's just take the light bar off. It's not worth fixing the light bar, putting a new light bar on.
I think it would total it out to replace the light bar.
Yeah, so, and we've got some other equipment that is, I think I used the word inappropriate, but it's too small for our needs. We have a dump truck that if I have this right, the dump part weighs as much as what the chassis is rated for. So as soon as you put a bag of grass seed in it, we're over limit. And we have two loaders, and those are, very helpful to us. But one of them, we had an elk that was that had passed, and we couldn't pick the elk up with our loader. So it just isn't, those kind of things we've got to be able to do. Some of the bigger rocks you see around. I mean, it's just that we really have one loader. So there are those kind of things that we want to try to rectify. And so we will be looking at those during the budget time. Finally, some good news. Health insurance. We've been notified that there's no increase in our health insurance this year. We've had good experience. Employees are all being reasonable and we're in a good pool, so that's worked out well. And the PERS rate increase, you can see that they've notified us what those are. Tier 1, we have 10 employees in there. Some of those are police officers. It's going from 29.15 to 30.2. Somebody help me with OPSRP.
I call it up, it's UPSRP.
I see what it spells, but it must be, but anyway,
It's Oregon,
that's right, retirement plan at the end. So it's Oregon something.
yeah.
But anyway, all right, fine. But anyway, they're included in the general employees. It's going from 22.3 to essentially 25. And police, we have 5 employees in that group. It's going from 27 to 29.38. And again, we have more than 5 officers, but some of those are in one of the other 2 groups. So that's going up, but I don't know if it went up as much as last year.
Do we know what the total of the amount is in terms of what that represents to us? In the
No, I haven't done that kind of analysis on it.
And we won't until we know what our employee costs are, because it's a percentage of.
That's true. Okay.
And the final thing is that the Oregon record system, it's scanning and indexing. We've been working towards scanning and indexing our records, our paper records. And we worked something out with the state. It's a program that they have that once we pay to have our things indexed and scanned, they will take those, they will manage those, they will do the destruction when it's time. They will keep the stuff you have to keep forever by, keeping it forever. And one of the great benefits is that will make it quite accessible to the public and to staff and the council and anybody else. So we stopped doing it last year because of the financial situation. But I anticipate that we will probably put at least $50,000 in to continue that effort. Because we're only, Rusty, 30%? You think?
Yeah, somewhere between 30 and 50, I think.
Yeah, someplace between 30 and 50 right now. We're getting into the more difficult parts, which include maps, the large scale, all those kinds of things. But that will all be available when we finally get there. So that's something we want to continue. So at this point, if you all have any questions or any discussion you want to have, but there is some guidance that we would like to get from you. And that's that going into the next year, we kind of saw between what we thought was going to happen, what actually happened. I don't know if what actually happened is our future. So I think that we're kind of looking at being comfortable going back to where we were before everything happened. But wanted to get everybody's sense is from your recommendation, do we want to go back from that? Is that a safe place, do you think, to go to right now? Remembering that we have some reserves now that could potentially help us if we had some issues. Where I get kind of back and forth on it is being conservative would be really nice, but we've skipped some needs last year. We've got those needs coming up now. And so do we want to go ahead and defer those again? Or, and we also have some costs that are going to be going up. We just talked about PERS. We know that the contract negotiations are going to have that impact. Vehicles, if we're going to get them. So, and then when we talk cost of construction or anything that we've got, anybody that's been to Home Depot and tried to buy wood or any of those kind of commodities, that the costs are going quite high. So anybody has any insight or whatever on that, that would be great. And we'll also answer any questions. We have the department heads here too to help. Thank you for your patience in listening. The presentation was that good that there's no questions. That's an optimistic conclusion.
Well, I guess my question is, how confident do we feel that we're not going to go back into a COVID situation again this year? And I guess that would kind of direct what we would do with budget at the time that does happen.
I guess what's the way that at least I'm looking at it is that it appears we're making headway with the vaccine, and hopefully we've learned a tremendous amount about what works and what doesn't. So hopefully we won't be experimenting and might not have to go quite as far as what we've had to do recently. And also, I don't think that, I think that people have learned that I can work from anywhere. And so I think that will be in our favor too.
I think we've also learned that people will come to Cannon Beach and stay here, whether there's a major pandemic or not.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing that we've learned.
No, I have a question or a comment. I don't know if you see me right now. Rusty, am I on?
Yes.
You're on, Mike.
I just wonder if it makes sense to do the budget from the standpoint of where we would like to end up the year. In other words, what kind of fund balance would we be comfortable maintaining to give us a bit of cushion, and then work backward from those numbers to see what is available to address the various projects or expenses that we have as a discretionary. We ended up with a really healthy ending balance, and I think that that's not necessarily the best way to run. If we had a target for what we'd like to see, which then provides enough cushion for errors or change of circumstances, and then back up, look at our revenue forecast and adjust projects or expenses based on maintaining that ending balance. I don't know, maybe Lori could answer that, if that makes any sense or not.
Does make sense if that's the base that you want to zero in on and achieve that goal of, having that available at year end. Yeah, I mean, that's a method that makes sense. It's one method.
So I think we might be able to help with that situation that, for example, I use vehicles, that we collected more than we projected. And so that gives us a positive balance where maybe some of those type of acquisitions could come from that, as opposed to next year's collections, just to try to help us get back on schedule.
Yeah.
I think we have a couple of tools to work towards that.
All right.
I like Mike's idea, working back from a projection. So let's try and head that way. I like that.
Okay.
I had a little question about the City Hall project. You were talking about a storage unit of some kind, and I think at some point it would be nice to have a work session to detail that out a little bit.
I feel the same way, Sam. I have some questions that I'd like to address as well.
Okay.
And so, we're working with David Veneta, and he is advising us and talking about what the options are. And he will be taking the concepts to local contractors to try to get pricing on it. And then when I don't anticipate that we will have the design by the time we get ready for budget, but we will have a cost towards what the project would be if we decide to develop it further. So that's how we're getting there.
Have you entertained the idea at all of modular construction? Since this is essentially, adding on to a structure that if things go the right way, we won't have anymore.
We've not gotten that far. We've got a couple of issues as far as where it might be able to go on our site. I don't think there's room there might be a little bit of room to put it next to the current police garage, but I'm pretty sure that is way over the buildable line.
It's possible if you take out the garage.
I'm sorry, I don't follow you, Brandon.
Right, if you remove the garage, you have that space to use to put something more useful in its place. Where I'm going with this is that the modular construction is possible, as you alluded to earlier, that these costs aren't recoverable. Mm-hmm. And that if we were to use something modular, it is possible to be able to recoup some of the investment.
Yeah.
Sure. And this the construction of the new facility is one of those things that we could potentially recoup depending on how we do it. And I think modular is the way to go. But we're not very far down that road yet.
Okay,
But
I
we'll
don't
definitely look
want to sidetrack this discussion. I think Sam's suggestion is where I'd like to address that.
Sure.
Okay. Anybody else have budget questions or comments?
I have a comment. So would we want to try to have an ending fund balance as maybe some percentage of revenue in that fund? Or I guess I'm just trying to think about what,
Let's go through and try to figure it out. I mean, it's a good
Okay, you
starting
and me.
point. Yeah,
okay, that's fine.
I think we need to look at what we're looking for.
Right.
You know, I guess one additional thing, we're going to have some expenses on the school in this fiscal year, this coming fiscal year. And we are a long way from identifying what those are. I think certainly the temporary modifications to the police department, we get our arms around that fairly quickly. But we're a long way yet from knowing what we're going to do on the school. You know, we kind of got forced into looking at the roof repair just by the fact that it's leaking and doing damage. But there are going to be other things that we need to begin planning for, even in the latter part of this fiscal year. I suspect, I don't know that, but I suspect that'll be the case. So, you know, we've had all our public input. Well, not all of it, you know, as Bruce mentioned, we've had 5 meetings to gather public input. I think it's time then in another work session, kind of along the lines of what Brandon's talking about, but have one that focuses on what steps can we identify and moving forward with the school renovation that might have to be accounted for in this coming budget. And I'm not sure what that is, but I think we're going to have that discussion fairly quickly and try to firm up just what this vision and use is going to be. So again, another meeting, but I think it's going to be important to do that.
Mike, do you think that would be a dedicated meeting or try to put it on the April workshop?
You know,
I just don't know what you're envisioning.
I guess I'd see a dedicated meeting unless we had a very light agenda in April. I don't know what currently being anticipated there, but if it was fairly light, then I would go ahead and do it in the April meeting.
Yeah. They all look good a month out.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, April's a breeze.
Right now it's very light.
Yeah, but that's not gonna last.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be happy to go ahead and get that on the agenda for the work session. And if other things come up, then maybe they have to go to a special session.
Let's do it. We'll put it on for at least a preliminary discussion, and we may be able to have time to have a bunch of time, but you will see it on the April, is it 13th? The April 13th workshop.
Yeah, and that hopefully we get some guidelines for the budget committee after that.
Sure.
So when would we have the work session on the police department?
Not until, well, probably not until we start the budget process. We may have something before and we could do it. I don't know if that's something that, because it's budget related, if it has to be done at a budget meeting. I can check on that. We may have some information before though.
So would that be a work session with the entire budget committee? Or would it be just the city council?
Okay, well, I think it could be just the city council because we're talking about a renovation to an existing facility. But when we talk about how we'll pay for it and making the final decision that would go in the budget, I think that discussion has to happen at the budget committee. Nobody tell Ashley that I said that.
I think it would be very important, though, for the council to have a concept discussion ahead of time.
Mhm.
For the police?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's no reason to put anything in the budget if we don't know what we're doing. So,
Well, no, yeah, again, and that's why we've got, do you want to wait until we get something from Veneta?
yeah,
Okay, when, as soon as we get something, we'll put it on a workshop.
okay. Okay, then, last call. Any more topics? Any more questions?
Paul raised his hand, I thought.
I was gonna piggyback on what Mike said about the school. I had a similar concerns about the building here is I'm not getting a sense of how urgent some of these repairs are. And whether we thought about that for the remainder of this year's budget. or not.
For the work here.
Yeah,
I want to do, as a matter of fact, we may be talking about doing some kind of a transfer or something to get the police station done as quickly as possible. And so maybe we do try to, as a matter of fact, I would prefer to try to do it this year because Jason, how much, would another 25 come in or something, or 15? Another 15 people come in
15.
in May, and they're here every day on top of the 12 that are currently here, using the one toilet. So we probably do need to make that one move forward more quickly.
Well, you also have some roof situations that you've got to get taken care of right away too, don't you?
Karen's looking at that. Do we have to do that now? Because that's another cost that would not be recoverable.
It sounds like it's pretty serious, so.
Yeah, and one of the things that happened was that one of our officers, the lieutenant, was walking into the building and bigger than any of these vents, but a metal vent fell on him. And a heavy one. And when it came time to fix it, the structure that would normally hold that vent up had corroded so bad from all of the leaks that he had to rig a whole nother way for that to hang, because there was nothing to hang it on. So, and we have that throughout.
We need a new police station.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll try again. Any more last comments? Okay, then. Let's move on. What are we on next, Bruce? Or is that it?
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, go to the order.
Okay, so everybody's up to speed, hopefully. The budget committee will be being more active in a month or two. And we'll have our next meeting then.
I want to thank Carolyn Props for all the work and help she's done. This is her last budget meeting. And we're going to miss you a lot.
Yes, we are.
You've made a huge difference here. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Welcome.
Don't sound so excited.
It's mixed feelings leaving, and
Well, I told her she could zoom in on our
I know,
meetings anytime and offer words of advice. So
yeah,
I'm sure she'll do that.
I will.
Just what you want to do.
Hey, you probably could have moved and we wouldn't have noticed if you just zoomed in all the time.
That's
Right.
true.
Okay, then anything for good of the order?
When will we meet next? May?
Yes. No, it'll probably be,
Late April.
anything between now and then will be very specific. And we're not supposed to meet on those kind of terms until we have a budget to hand you. So it'll probably be May, but we can always have discussions, during workshops or whatever, answer questions.
I just meant specifically as the budget committee.
Because the budget committee will probably be when we have the budget in hand.
Okay.
May.
I think didn't we see May 7th, 12th, and 19th? Is that, are
I
those?
think that was probably on the schedule we've sent out.
Yeah, Jen sent it out.
Yeah, that was where we're aiming for, right?
That's what we're aiming for, yes.
Okay, then.
All right.
Thanks to everybody.
Thank you.
you.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, Sam.
Yep. See y'all.